Several weeks ago, a friend and I were talking about today, the TEDx Climate Countdown, and whether we were going to apply it to become speakers. I told her I was interested and wanted to focus on harnessing climate education to solve the climate crisis. But instead of an intrigued and excited face I was hoping for, all I got was disappointment and a doubted look. "Do you really think we can solve climate change? I mean, we're just kids," she said. At that moment, I could not do anything but let the moment pass by and blurt out an awkward chuckle. But when I went home and looked back at what had happened, I realized that many people don't believe in the power of the youth to make a difference. A few weeks later, in my environmental science class, we were discussing climate change and sustainability. The question was whether individuals had the power to influence bigger decision makers and change what businesses sell, what governments put on their climate contracts, what resolutions are passed at international climate conferences. One student said, "Of course, individuals definitely have the power to influence bigger decision makers, even if it seems like we're powerless against a big lump of climate change sometimes." But another student continued to argue, "No, it's not possible. Because individuals aren't the ones to blame, as climate change itself is not a result of individual behaviors and actions, but rather the consequence of greedy capitalistic businesses striving to make the most profit, and irresponsible government officials loosening their carbon objectives." But when I thought about it, he missed out a really important portion of the picture: the youth. To him, youth wasn't even included in the solution. But how can we exclude the youth when we are all evidently part of the climate crisis? How can we dare to aim to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050 if 40% of the world's population's taps are running, showers are longer, and rooms are lit when leaving for dinner? So, after a little bit of thinking, I realized that many students, including myself a few months ago, believe they don't have any share in taking care of the world around them. So I wanted to enable them to realize that they are just as important as any highly acclaimed government official, any high-status professor. But I was stuck. I had no experience whatsoever. And where was I to start? Who was I to impact? And did I even have the right to influence others with my words? So after a little bit of thinking, I decided to become a teacher advisor for an after-school environmental club, helping build lesson ideas for the teacher and also help students fulfill their potential. But under one condition: the little elementary kids. The first thing that came to my mind was, how on earth am I going to teach climate change to these little kids when all they have on their minds is running across the playground with their arms and legs in the air? But throughout the weeks, I realized that those worries weren't worries at all. Although we didn't dig deep into how to convert methane into carbon, or what items are on world leaders' agendas, something simple and fun, such as making organic tea bags out of sage and licorice mint, actually harvested from our own school garden, and actually drinking them afterwards, enabled them to realize and become more familiar with using organic material from nature to create something new. This enables students to build an emotional relationship between nature and themselves, and to take the first step in hopping onto the journey to care a little more about the environment. Then we made sun s'mores with chocolate, marshmallows and biscuits to learn about how the box traps some of the sun's energy to heat the box and eventually melt the s'mores. This enables students to take a small peek into how global warming works. And although this doesn't solve climate change immediately or enlighten students with great lifelong wisdom on how climate change works, it enables students to take the first step in knowing how climate change works, knowing how global warming works, which is the very crucial step in becoming future climate activists. To gain a more holistic understanding of how global warming works, we built mini terrarium gardens and compared open and closed terrarium gardens to see which one was warmer. Without fully understanding how global warming works, it's difficult to buffer its effects or try to think of any solutions because you don't know what it roots back to. But with this activity, students learned how to connect activity to learning, learning to meaning, and took the further step in becoming climate activists. Now, instead of simply memorizing names of greenhouse gases or analyzing complex models, students took the first crucial step in understanding how the climate works by engaging in interactive and meaningful activities. And to reuse and recycle. We made photograph holders out of corks, candle holders out of empty jam jars, jewelry made out of CDs. In essence, we made new objects out of materials we found scattered across the school, making new objects that we never thought would have been to any use, giving them a second life, turning useless into useful, and started to realize the beauty of upcycling. Not only reducing the waste in landfills or conserving our limited resources, but also throwing around some creativity and innovation. After working with younger students and familiarizing them with nature and climate change, I decided I wanted to take a deeper dive into discussing climate change with other people my age. So I organized a one-day mini workshop on the basics of climate change, and during that workshop, students from all around the world connected virtually to discuss what climate change means to us and impacts us on a personal and community level. One thing I realized that after this workshop, we shared our thoughts on how we felt. And surprisingly, everyone thought they had learned something new. Everyone thought they were inspired by what I had done. And I can definitely say I learned that inspiring doesn't have to be something grand. Inspiring is just showing others that you care. A few weeks ago, I started an initiative called the Climate Change Makers Initiative to use education to spur collective action in combating climate change. This initiative aims to introduce climate-inclusive curriculums, as well as holding climate change-related events, discussions, debates, and roundtables to engage the whole school community in taking action against climate change. We are currently planning a climate week with one challenge a day, such as unplugging your unused appliances or recycling plastic. From unplugging your coffee machine when you're not using it, or eating a plant-based meal, or even air drying your laundry instead of dumping it in the dryer. These small actions can translate into bigger ones if everyone takes action. Instead of expecting the young to wait their turn, or postpone climate change and all those worries for later on in life, the youth should be encouraged to take action, to be responsible for their own carbon footprint, to be responsible for their response to other leaders around the world, to be responsible for their own consumption and waste. They should be at the forefront of climate justice. Climate change heard on the news or seen in photos might make you frown, might make you scared, or simply feel thankful for having a roof over your head. Actually taking action, this is a secret, but may make you frown even more, may make you want to take a few steps back, as if a giant elephant is waiting outside your door, pounding and ringing your doorbell again and again, and you really don't want to open it and it's freaking you out, but think of it this way. Acting upon climate change doesn't have to begin with something grand, such as changing government policy or thinking of innovative technology to save the whole of humanity. It begins with caring. Now, this may sound cliche, it may sound absurd, and it may sound like I'm being overly optimistic, but I'm not. Of course, much of the change we see in society may be in the hands of bigger stakeholders with a bulk of authority, like businesses, government officials, factory owners, NGOs, policymakers. But that doesn't mean the rest of society should wait out on the sidelines. Everyone should participate. Everyone should rush to the front line and fight with everyone else. And if everyone, and I mean everyone in this room, in this school, in this city, this town, this nation, this world, even the person who's probably shrugging their shoulders and not giving a damn about what I'm saying right now, everyone will be able to spur collective action in stopping climate change. By feeling, inspiring, sharing, and learning, we can all spur collective action in combating climate change. Thank you.